So welcome to each and every one of you, whoever you are and however you're feeling, and whatever you bring with you in your heart. Joy, sadness, annoyance, pleasure, uncertainty, maybe even curiosity as to what's this going to be all about today. You're welcome, whatever your faith or none. And if you're joining us for the first time on the Zoom or watching later, or if you're a regular on Zoom, you're welcome too. Today, the 12th of April, it is exactly 65 years since the first human being flew into space, marking the beginning of a new stage in humanity's journey. So in the service this morning, we'll be celebrating those 65 years of achievements and the widening of our horizons. We start, as is our custom, by lighting our chalice flame as a symbol of our free religious faith. And for those of you on Zoom at home, if you have a candle, you may like to light it now. That's the hard part. Words for chalice lighting. Beautiful is the light. Sunlight streaming through the windows, the soft glow of the candle, the flaming sky before darkness, the glittering stars and the soft silver glow of our moon that lights the night, and the dawn breaking endlessly over the bright rim of creation. A few opening words. Above the moon, earth rises, a sunlit, mossy stone, a garden that God prizes, where life has richly grown, an emerald selected for us to guard with care, an island space protected by one thin veil of air. And this is a lot of it about exploration. And our first hymn is on the theme of exploration. And the words are by a former minister of this church, the Reverend John Andrew Story, who I believe had an interest in astronomy himself. So you're welcome to join in singing our first hymn, number 40 in the Green Book, Once the Fearless Navigator, but the words will appear on the screen as well. Let us turn to a time of prayer and reflection. Firstly, a prayer for others and for ourselves. Let us pause and hold in our thoughts and prayers those of our own church community and their loved ones, and those in the wider world who may be experiencing difficult, sad, or worrying times, whatever the causes. We hold in our thoughts and prayers all whose lives have been lost or changed forever through violence due to political and social unrest, through natural disasters, or accident, or plain misfortune, wherever they may be in the world. May those fleeing conflict or natural disasters, many of them vulnerable, the young, the sick, the elderly, find sanctuary somewhere and peace. And may the places to which they flee somehow find the strength and resources to provide what is needed. May those claiming to be the leaders of all countries be blessed with compassion and wisdom to prevent further destruction. We think today of the dangerous tensions between the so-called superpowers. May sense and a desire for peace prevail. Let us pray that the increasingly fragmented society in our own land comes to its collective senses, to resolve its differences, heal its self-inflicted wounds, and be at peace with itself. As we pause now in the quietness of our own thoughts, let us consider both the blessings and the trials of our own lives, and dedicate ourselves to sharing our blessings and to doing what we can to ease the trials of others. So let us pause for a moment in the shared good silence. Amen. And now a prayer adapted from the words of Robert T. Weston. O mystery beyond my understanding, voice in my heart, answering to the earth and the light of distant stars. O wonder of this season, the dewdrops sparkling on the web at sunrise, and unseen life moving in the depths and shallows of the brook, trembling in raindrops at the edge of eaves. Whisper to me of secrets I would know. O power that flows through me and all that is, light of moon and sun and stars, pulsating in the atoms in my heart. Whether you are mind and spirit or energy transcending human thought, I cannot know. And yet I feel that out of sorrow and pain and the toil through which creation springs from human hands, a force works toward the victory of life, even through the stars. New buds burst forth, and life presses on. O mystery, may we ever keep our sense of wonder and awe. Amen. Our first reading, the Bible contains several verses referring to the cosmos, highlighting the beauty and majesty of God's creation. I'm going to read some now. They include verses from Genesis, from the Psalms, and from the book of Isaiah. From Genesis 1:1, at the very beginning. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And this establishes the concept of the cosmos as part of a divine plan. From the Psalms, from Psalm 19, the heavens declare the glory of God, the skies proclaim the work of his hands. From Isaiah 40, lift up your eyes and look to the heavens. Who created all these? He who brings out the starry host one by one and calls forth each of them by name. And from the Psalms, Psalm 8. When I consider your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars which you have set in place, what is mankind that you are mindful of them? Wonderful words, whatever your concept of God may be. And I think in this place it may not be the traditional one, for some of you at least. For the first time in 1961, human beings were sent short distances into space to take a closer look at these wonders, not for aesthetic enjoyment, but as part of an intensely political, competitive international space race between the then USSR and the USA. The first to go up was Yuri Gagarin, the Soviet cosmonaut. He was launched aboard the Vostok 1 spacecraft from the Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan at 9:07 a.m. Moscow time on the 12th of April 1961. 65 years ago today exactly. He famously exclaimed, "Poyakali, let's go," at liftoff. The spacecraft reached a maximum altitude of 203 miles and travelled at a speed of approximately 17,000 miles an hour. And he completed one single orbit of the Earth. The whole flight lasted 108 minutes from launch to landing. He ejected from his capsule and parachuted to Earth, landing safely on farmland. The first person to greet him was a small girl, and we're going to see a video clip which was made on the 60th anniversary. And this person is now an elderly lady, and I hope she's alive on the 65th anniversary too. And she shares some of her memories of this momentous event. Well,
this is Space Conquerors Park, a few hundred miles south of Moscow. It's a celebration of Russia's achievements in space exploration. And the reason the park was built here is that 60 years ago, this place became part of a remarkable story. On the 12th of April 1961, a Soviet Air Force pilot, Yuri Gagarin, became the first human to blast into space. And on his descent, Gagarin parachuted out of the tiny space capsule he was in, and he landed here. This was farmland at the time, much to the surprise of a 5-year-old girl who was out in the fields planting potatoes.
Бабушка делала луночки, а я просто помогала, бросала картошечку в лунки. Через некоторое время я обернулась в поле и увидела что-то оранжевое, красивое, непонятно что. И шел к нам навстречу Бабушка испугалась. Бабушка испугалась, схватила меня за руку, и мы хотели убежать в сторону дома. Говорит: мамаша, стойте, я свой. Я бабушке сказала: остановись, послушай, говорит по-русски, человек, наверное.
What do you remember most about this spaceman who was suddenly standing in front of you?
Конечно, улыбка. Улыбка. И голос такой добрый. Бабушка спросила: откуда ты, на чем, как сюда попал вообще на поле? Он говорит: я на корабле. Она ему сказала: тут воды-то близко нету, какой корабль? Он говорит: я с неба.
Раскрывай объятия столицы.
The next call was at Admiralty House to see the Prime Minister. Mr. Macmillan said, he's a delightful fellow, which just about sums up what everybody thought.
How does it feel to have been part of history?
Я считаю, что в жизни мне очень повезло, что я оказалась первой, что я оказалась на этом поле, сажала картошку с бабушкой. И я очень горжусь тем, что именно наш советский космонавт спустился к нам с небес на наше поле.
Hundreds of people have since travelled into space, but only one man was first. And Russians are intensely proud of the fact that it was their guy, Yuri Gagarin, who made history with his flight to the stars.
And just think how incredibly brave. He parachuted out of that capsule. Gosh. So, there. And as you hear more of the last 65 years, people's spirit of adventure and also enormous bravery to do what each one of them has done. Well, less than a month after the little girl encountered Yuri Gagarin in the potato field, the second human went into space, and he was the American Alan Shepard on May the 5th, 1961. His flight wasn't as long, and the USA felt the sting of disappointment at being picked to the post by the USSR. Within a few weeks, President Kennedy made his famous pledge to send men to the moon by the end of the decade. And within 2 years, many more Americans were going into space. A lot of people questioned the value of sending humans rather than relying on machines alone. But we're going to hear a true story which answers that question, and Stephen is going to read it for us.
Man or machine? On May the 15th and the 16th, 1963, Gordon Cooper was orbiting the Earth alone inside a capsule barely big enough to turn around in, moving at 17,500 miles per hour. This was part of the American Mercury Atlas program of space flights. He had been up there for 22 orbits, 34 hours, 19 minutes, 49 seconds. Then the warning started. First, a faulty sensor screaming that the ship was falling. It wasn't, so he switched it off. Then something far worse. A short circuit knocked out the entire automated guidance system. The one that kept the capsule steady, the one that was supposed to bring him home. This made re-entry nearly impossible. Too shallow an angle, and the capsule would bounce off the atmosphere back into space. Too steep, and it would be incinerated. The margin for error was razor thin, and every computer that was supposed to hit that margin was dead. Silence. Down on the ground, NASA engineers watched the telemetry in silence. They could see everything going wrong, and they could fix nothing. Gordon Cooper didn't panic, because when you have no computers left, you become the computer. He uncapped a grease pencil and drew lines directly on the inside of his window to track the horizon. He looked up at the stars that he'd spent months memorizing and used their positions to orient the ship by eye. Then he set his wristwatch to calculate timing in his head. At exactly the right moment, calculated in his head, confirmed by the stars outside, he fired the retro rockets. The capsule shook, the sky turned to fire. For several minutes, no one on Earth could reach him as plasma swallowed the ship whole. Then the parachutes opened. Faith 7 splashed down just 4 miles from the recovery ship, USS Kearsarge. It was the single most accurate landing in the entire Mercury program. The man with a wristwatch and a few pencil marks on the window had outperformed every automated system NASA had. This proved that the final backup was never the software, but the human who could look out of the window and think clearly under pressure. We talk a lot about technology saving us, and it often does. But Gordon Cooper's story is a quiet reminder that behind every machine, there still has to be a human being who can look out of the window and think clearly under pressure and decide what to do.
Thank you, Stephen. We're going to have another little video clip now, and this is about Yuri Gagarin, but also about other early space flights.
Great success in space when the Russians pushed a man across the threshold.
It has been 57 years since the first human ventured into space. On April 12, 1961, Soviet cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin made history at the age of 27 by completing a single orbit of Earth in approximately 108 minutes.
The Russians had successfully launched the first satellite ever to circle the Earth.
In the late 1950s, the Soviet Union placed the first artificial satellite, Sputnik 1, into orbit, igniting the space race between the United States and the Soviet Union. The competition over who had superior technology and military fight power took center stage during the Cold War. The Soviets claimed the first victory by sending the first man into space. Yuri Gagarin took flight in a capsule-like spacecraft called Vostok 1, which was adapted from a Soviet intercontinental ballistic missile, the R-7 Semyorka. Beginning his flight at the Baikonur Cosmodrome in southern Kazakhstan, Gagarin reached a maximum height of 203 miles. Vostok 1 had no engines to slow it for re-entry, so Gagarin successfully landed by ejecting and parachuting back to Earth. Some question the validity of his mission because he didn't successfully land while in the spacecraft, but his title as the first man in space still holds. Less than a month later, the United States successfully launched the first American astronaut, Alan Shepard, into space, and later concluded the space race when Apollo 11 touched down on the moon.
One giant leap for mankind.
Soon after that, the Soviet Union and the United States participated in a joint mission to space and greeted each other with the historic handshake in space, symbolizing the end of the competitive era. After more than 50 years, Gagarin's journey is still regarded as a key moment in space history that paved the way for all future space endeavors that followed.
It's time for another hymn. And this is, I don't know whether we've sung this one before. I was looking for a hymn which mentioned the exploration and the free spirit, and I found it, so I do hope you'll enjoy singing it. It's number 212 in the Purple Book, Where My Free Spirit Onward Leads. There is a single voice accompanying the tune, and I think a lot of you probably know the tune. I do hope so. So here we go with 200.
Journey
Well done. We'll have that one again sometime. We're now going to hear about the more spiritual side of some of these space adventurers, and Viv is going to read us a piece about the first Holy Communion on the moon.
The first Holy Communion on the moon. Apollo 11, July the 20th, 1969, when Neil Armstrong became the first human to set foot on the moon. This Eastertide, Christians may rejoice that the second man to do so, Buzz Aldrin, was the first to celebrate Holy Communion there. In 1969, Buzz Aldrin was an elder at Webster Presbyterian Church in Houston, where he was given the communion kit that he took to the Sea of Tranquility after obtaining the agreement of NASA. Upon landing on the moon in the Eagle lunar module, Buzz made the following announcement to Mission Control. Houston, this is Eagle. This is the LM pilot speaking. I would like to request a few moments of silence. I would like to invite each person listening in, whoever or wherever he may be, to contemplate for a moment the events of the last few hours, and to give thanks in his own individual way. Aldrin reported the following later, during the blackout, the radio blackout. I opened the little plastic packages which contain the bread and the wine. I poured the wine into the chalice our church had given me. In the 1/6 gravity of the moon, the wine slowly curled and gracefully came up the side of the cup. Then I read the scripture. I am the vine, you are the branches. Whosoever abides in me will bring forth much fruit, for without me ye can do nothing. Buzz continued, I had intended to read my communion passage back to earth, but at the last minute, Deke Slayton had requested that I not do this. NASA was already embroiled in a legal battle with Madeleine Murray O'Hair, a celebrated opponent of religion, over the Apollo 8 crew reading from Genesis while orbiting the moon at Christmas. I agreed reluctantly. Eagle's metal body creaked. I ate the tiny host and swallowed the wine. I gave thanks for the intelligence and spirit that had brought 2 young pilots to the Sea of Tranquility. It was interesting for me to think the very first liquid ever poured on the moon and the very first food eaten there were the communion elements. At that time, I could think of no better way to acknowledge the enormity of the Apollo 11 experience than to give thanks to God. This event can be relieved in the 1998 mini-series From the Earth to the Moon. It is now April 2026, and 96-year-old Buzz Aldrin watched the Artemis liftoff with his daughter Jan, who stated, "It was amazing to share the liftoff of Artemis 2 with my father watching the launch of a new generation of explorers to leave the planet. Congratulations to the Artemis team and Godspeed to the crew of Artemis," which luckily worked.
Thank you, Viv. And I would like to say that it was actually Viv who brought my attention to this last Sunday. So thank you very much, Viv, and very appropriate, I think. I'm going to read a piece, a meditational piece called One Small Step, and then we'll have some reflective music and videos of the majesty of the cosmos. This is called One Small Step, and those of you who know me well won't be surprised to hear that it was written by the Reverend Cliff Reed. He originally wrote it for the 25th anniversary of that first moon landing, but I think it's still as valid today as it was then. He writes, "One Christmas, an astronaut spoke to us from space. He read to us from Genesis. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. He created all of us on the good earth. One July evening, 2 astronauts landed on the moon. One called it one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. We walked on another world. We saw Earthrise, and we thought could never be the same again. We gained perspective, saw the Earth's beauty and fragility, the absurdity of our pride. Ingenuity and technology, ambition and politics, money and resources beyond imagination. These got us to the moon. These and the ambivalent human spirit, a little lower than the angel, reaching out both in wonder and in would-be mastery. That was then. We've drawn back, and the astronauts bide their time. But the memory and the pictures remain, the words from space, Earthrise, and the perspective too. Let us reflect upon them. O God, who made the lights in the firmament, we who once walked the lesser light, seek wisdom to walk the good earth in gentleness and in peace. So I entitled this service Widening Our Horizons, 65 Years of Human Space Travel. 65 years isn't so very long. It's less than the modern average lifespan of a person living in the affluent West. And it falls short of the biblical lifetime mentioned in Psalm 90. The days of our years are 70 years and 10. Yet in the 65 years since Yuri Gagarin made his historic single orbit of the Earth, there have been so many achievements, and human space life has evolved dramatically with many milestones along the way. Yuri Gagarin's flight marked the beginning of human space exploration and of the space race between the United States and the Soviet Union, as already mentioned. Before I go any further, I'd like to pause for a moment to think about the many animals sent up before humans to test whether living organisms could even survive spaceflight. It was seen as an essential stepping stone to human missions, and more animals were sent up later to study the effects of spaceflight upon body processes. The USA, the Soviet Union, France, Argentina, China, Japan, and Iran all sent up various animals. These celestial Noah's Arks included fruit flies, monkeys and apes, dogs, cats, tortoises, mice, rats, rabbits, fish, frogs, spiders, insects, and quail eggs, which hatched on Mir in 1990. The United States launched the first primates in 1949. That's a significant year for some of us, isn't it? Oh. And then the USSR launched 2 dogs into suborbital orbits in 1951, and both of those survived. But maybe the best known was Laika. She was found as a stray puppy in Moscow, and after weeks training her to live in increasingly confined conditions, she was launched aboard Sputnik 2 in November 1957 into a low Earth orbit. It is now thought that she died within a few hours, and actually, I hope she did. 5 months later, Sputnik 2, containing Laika's remains, re-entered the Earth's atmosphere and burnt up. I can remember hearing about it on the radio. We didn't have a television then. And as an 8-year-old, asking my dad what had happened to her. He was lost for words and tried to comfort me by saying she wouldn't have felt any pain, and I sincerely hope that's true. And there is actually a memorial to Laika in Moscow acknowledging her contribution to space exploration. The first living beings to circulate the moon were 2 tortoises and several varieties of plants. That was in September 1968 on the Zond 5 mission. In 1972, 5 mice nicknamed Fee, Fi, Fo, Fum and Fooey orbited the moon a record 75 times as part of the Apollo 17 mission, so they would have had human companions. Many of these animals survived their journeys with no ill effects and contributed to our understanding of what happens to the body long-term living in space. But surely, I think the time has come for the studies to focus now on human beings. So back to the human guinea pigs. In the months following Yuri Gagarin's flight, he visited many countries, as we saw in that little video clip. His engaging personality and cheering smile winning many hearts around the world. Weeks after Gagarin's flight, Alan Shepard became the first American in space on May the 5th, 1961, so literally just a few weeks later. He was in the first Project Mercury flight. The Mercury flights each carried 1 person. They prepared the way for future multi-manned missions, and as we heard in the story that Stephen read, it proved the unique value of having a person on board compared with flights carrying only machines and instruments. The Russian Valentina Tereshkova became the first woman in space on Vostok 6 on the 16th of June 1963. She spent almost 3 days in space and orbited the Earth 48 times. And she was the only woman to have been on a solo space mission. And at 26 years old, she was the youngest, and I believe she remains the youngest woman to have flown in space. And she later married Andriy Nikolaev, a fellow cosmonaut. In March 18th, 1965, Alexei Leonov, a friend of Yuri Gagarin's, performed the first spacewalk, proving that human beings could survive outside a vehicle, but obviously wearing a spacesuit. The USA's Gemini project spacecraft each carried 2 astronauts, hence the name Gemini, and achieved many developments essential for reaching the moon, like longer time spent in space and docking 2 vehicles in space. And these would be incorporated into the Apollo missions, which led to the moon landings. And so the United States caught up and took the lead in the space race. All seemed to be going really well until tragedy struck. Sadly, 2 Gemini astronauts, Elliot C. and Charles Bassett, died in a plane crash on the way to the launch in February 1966. And then, which I can remember very well, the first Apollo spacecraft was undergoing ground tests, and the crew of 3, the command pilot Gus Grissom, the senior pilot Ed White, and pilot Roger B. McAfee, were killed in a dreadful fire on board in January 1967. This shocked the nation, as you may imagine, and all missions were stopped for nearly 2 years, and many very hard lessons were learnt from this. But eventually the Apollo missions resumed, and on Christmas Eve 1968, the crew of Apollo 8 successfully completed an orbit around the back of the moon for the first time. It was the furthest any human had travelled. The body of the moon blocked all radio contact with the Earth for many minutes. And as the craft emerged to face the Earth again, radio contact was renewed, and the astronauts witnessed that wonderful spectacle of Earthrise. It was the first time that anybody had seen the Earth as a whole planet. From the distance of the moon, it appeared as a small blue marble against the blackness of space. It struck people that this was home to all life as we know it. Many people regard the environmental movement as really starting from this time. And the astronauts moved to send a very special Christmas message to all humankind with a shared reading from Genesis. And it included words from Genesis chapter 1 to 10 on the creation, and we heard a little bit of that earlier. At the end of his reading, the commander Frank Borman read, "And God said, let the waters under the heavens be gathered together unto one place, and to let the dry land appear. And it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and to the gathering together of the seas, the waters called he seas. And it was good." He concluded the message from the astronauts with, "And from the crew of Apollo 8, we close with good night, good luck, a Merry Christmas, and God bless all of you on the good earth." This was broadcast live on millions of TV sets around the world, and it united people from many nations who were eager to watch this. And then a few months later, in July 1969, during Apollo 11's historic voyage and the first moon landing, Buzz Aldrin quoted these following verses from Psalm 8. "When I look at your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars that you have established. What are human beings that you are mindful of them, mortals that you care for them? And again, millions of people around the world were glued to their TV sets, caught up and united in their desire to watch this historic event. And I'm sure that some of you here today may remember that. So, over the next 2 years, following Apollo missions, continued lunar exploration, including Apollo 13, the one which nearly didn't make it after an in-flight accident. And it was only through the skill of the astronauts and the NASA ground crew that a disaster was avoided and all 3 returned safely to Earth. Since those heady days, over 50 years ago, humans have built large space stations orbiting the Earth where people from many nations have learned to cooperate to expand our knowledge of the universe. The Russian Mir, now decommissioned, became a temporary home to the first British astronaut, Helen Sharman, in 1991. And in 2015 to 16, the British astronaut Tim Peake spent several months on the International Space Station. His broadcasts from space were especially interesting to young people, and he has toured many places to speak to school children. There have been, of course, sadnesses too, the most memorable being the loss of the Space Shuttle Challenger during launch on the 28th of January 1986. All seemed to be going well, and then about 63 seconds after liftoff, a major failure of the rocket caused the death of all 7 crew members, horrifying many people who were watching on site and on TV. Aboard was a school teacher, and there'd been such a focus on her to inspire the young people, Krista McAuliffe, and sadly she and her colleagues were killed, all 7 of them. And then some 17 years later, almost to the day, on the 1st of February 2003, the Space Shuttle Columbia broke up over northeast Texas on its way back from a 16-day mission. And again, all 7 astronauts on board were killed. And the Russians had their losses too. We aren't quite sure how many, because in the early days, they wouldn't have admitted to that. Well, sad as this is, it is part of the cost of that human urge to explore. Despite the risks, humans have always had the desire to reach out to the unknown. Centuries ago, it was to explore beyond the shores of lands on this planet. Now it is to reach out to the far distant shores on other planets. This draws out the best of the human spirit within us all, uniting millions of others watching from afar. And of course, with the very recent Artemis 2 mission, just a few days ago. I know I can't have been the only person staying up to watch that craft reappear from the far side of the moon after 40 minutes of radio silence. I think it was Easter Monday night. And I know I wasn't the only one of this congregation sitting up late 2 nights ago to watch the splashdown and the safe retrieval of the 4Q crew, the most diverse moon voyage crew in history. NASA's Reid Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Koch, and the Canadian Jeremy Hansen. They're safely back and in good health, and happy to share the following comments. Christina Koch said, "A crew is a group that is in it all the time, no matter what, that is stroking together every minute with the same purpose, that is willing to sacrifice silently for each other, that gives grace, that holds accountable." She continued, "A crew has the same cares and the same needs, and a crew is inescapably, dutifully linked." She added that one of her strongest revelations came while observing the Earth appear tiny through the window of Orion, and all of the blackness around it. I know I haven't learnt everything that this journey has yet to teach me, she said. But there's one new thing I know, and that is, planet Earth, you are a crew. Crewmate Hansen added, what you saw was a group of people who love contributing, having meaningful contribution, and extracting joy out of that. And what we've been hearing is that that was something special for you, he meant the people on Earth, to witness. I would suggest to you that when you look up here, you're not looking at us. We are a mirror reflecting you. And if you like what you see, then just look a little deeper. This is you. And to close with a comment from the NASA administrator, Jared Eisman. He said that the Artemis II mission will always be remembered because it's the moment when the crew and the people around the world saw the moon again, and where childhood dreams became missions. And if that's not widening our horizons, I don't know what is. Amen. We now have a little video clip, taken just a few days. It's from the Artemis II, for you to enjoy a little bit of what they saw. And then we'll have our closing hymn.
NASA just released something no human has ever seen until now. On April 6th, the 4 astronauts of Artemis II flew behind the moon and watched a total solar eclipse from space, not from Earth, from 250,000 miles away through the window of the Orion spacecraft. Because they were so close to the moon, totality lasted 54 minutes, the longest total solar eclipse ever witnessed by human eyes. The best we ever get on the ground? About 7 minutes. NASA just dropped the photos, and they are breathtaking. You can see the sun's white corona glowing like a ghostly halo around a pitch-black lunar disk. And because the moon blocked all that light, stars, normally too faint to image near the moon, are clearly visible in the frame. That bright speck you can see right there, that's Venus. But the image that might hit hardest, just minutes before the eclipse, the crew captured an Earth-set. Our planet, this tiny blue marble wrapped in swirling white clouds, slipping behind the rugged, cratered edge of the moon. The last time human eyes saw something like this was over 50 years ago. These aren't just pretty pictures, they're proof that humanity is back in deep space. We left Earth, looked back, and saw just how small and how precious our planet is. To get regular space updates in your feed, follow The Secrets of the Universe.
Time for our final hymn, number 186 in the Purple Book, We Are Travellers on a Journey. And I think that's particularly relevant today.
Smile.
Closing words. Remembering that the universe is so much larger than our ability to comprehend, let us go forth from this time together with resolve to stop trying to reduce the incomprehensible to our own petty expectations, so that wonder, that sense of what is sacred, can open up our minds and light up our lives. Amen.